Welcome everyone to Coffee with a Codex. My name is Dot Porter. I'm a curator in the Schoenberg Institute for Manuscript Studies in the Kislak Center for Special Collections, Rare Books, and Manuscripts in the University of Pennsylvania Libraries. Um, Although manuscripts is in our name, clearly this is not a manuscript. So I'm really pleased today to have my colleague Louis Meiselman on. If you've been here before, you may have seen Louis. He is our Judaica cataloging librarian, and he likes to come on and show us new acquisitions that he's just recently cataloged. And this one is really cool. So he is, as I said, he's not in the room, but he's going to be talking. I will be showing here. You're going to see my hands. Before we start, I want to point out that I'm wearing gloves, which is not something that you normally see on the show. We don't wear gloves when we handle books and manuscripts most of the time, but this is made of metal, and it is best practice to wear nitrile gloves when you're handling metal because the oils on your fingers can actually do damage to metal. So that's why I'm wearing gloves. Enjoy it while you can, because you won't see this again for a while. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Louis. Hi.
Hi, Dot. Thank you. This is something I worked on not too long ago, and I thought when I worked on it that this would definitely make an interesting and certainly different coffee with a codex. This coffee is actually with a ritual dagger and not a codex. We've seen many codices in the past, and they definitely don't look like this. So, let's get started. This, as you can see, this looks like a weapon. I think I wanted to say at the outset that despite it looking like a weapon, I don't believe this was ever used to hurt anyone, certainly not to kill anyone. Um, as you can see, Dot is handling the tip of it, which on a dagger knife as a weapon would not be possible without hurting oneself. Um, the blade is very dull and equally dull as the base of the blade, so that should that should tell you something about the use and the use and purpose of this dagger. What you see on the base of the dagger is a hole, and then you see the metal, what looks like it should be changing. That is because, and also you see a rougher surface. That is because that actually was where the handle of the dagger went, which was made out of wood, and in a kind of a in kind of a different way, the wood was repurposed since this item was created, but the metal hasn't been repurposed. I'll get more into that later. Um, these daggers are actually part of a much wider practice than the Jewish practice of ceremonial or incantation or protective daggers, amulets, and so on. Um, there's a very wide practice of there's a very wide practice of incantation and these sorts of daggers that would also serve as protection that goes far beyond Judaism. And there's another name that I wanted to throw out there. I believe it's called athamé, although I might not be pronouncing this right. Um, and examples of the athamé can come from Europe, Russia, the Middle East, the Far East. They might range all the way from, let's say, Finland, all the way to India. And obviously, in such cases where the range is so large, the symbols would be different, the scripts would be different, and possibly even the intent of the protection that it would bring about would be different as well. But this is actually one of the really wide practices of writing and creating. Now, I do want to point out that this also, I guess, curatorially has a difference in that this didn't come from a typical, let's say, rare bookshop or auction house. This actually came from a jewelry dealer. and we noticed it, and we thought that this was something really interesting to pick up. Um, I don't believe the jewelry dealer even knew really what he had, and that the fact that this has seems to come to us through a jewelry dealer may suggest to us how this one survived. This practice of creating these daggers was actually fairly widespread throughout the what used to be called the Near East, and this is Iran, Iraq, the Middle East, and also parts of North Africa. Because of the origin, the make, and all those things, with this one, I believe this one comes from either Iran or parts of Iraq near Iran today. And this one also, which might have been different from historical examples in the past, is made from this is actually copper and silver plated. That might have that might have been the reason why this item was not seen as a candidate to melt down during the 19th century when a lot of these examples were melted down, especially ones created from more expensive metals like silver.
Can I just
So
can I
yeah,
ask a question real quick?
sure.
When was this made? Do you know?
Oh, I'm sorry. We think that this was made about the 18th century. So we give it a little bit of a wider date, especially for something like this. And many amulets have wider dates because it's hard to exactly pinpoint when they are made. So it's about 1750 to 1800. Um, and like I said, it comes from probably Iran or parts of Iraq near Iran. Um, and like I said, this was a this is a widespread practice. We find in among the Jewish use of the protective dagger, the practice was for infants. Of course, the many things that could befall an infant has scared many parents, and this was one of the ways that they would assure protection by writing these names. I'm going to get into what exactly you see in the script on this item, that this would be left down with an infant, probably buried either under the room or in some kind of hiding place within the room. Um, and okay, I can start getting into the text, but I just wanted to give some background to the item. I also want to point out that you kind of see that the dagger has a bent point. Um, on the side that we're looking at, that point goes down, and then on the other side, that point would point up. Um, I actually saw when I was researching this item that I actually saw that this practice of having the ritual dagger move into a slight angle towards the middle and having the script run off into that point, that's actually more common than one would think. We're used to thinking of a dagger as some kind of blade that goes straight into a point for maximum, I guess, maximum danger to the opponent or danger to the instigator of the fight. This is not that way. This is actually meant to sort of be at a unique or special angle like that. Um, the side that we're looking at here is what I believe, although I might be incorrect. I just try to gain as much knowledge as this from what I saw in the examples that survive, which is actually fewer because a lot of them were melted down. This would have been the right side up, what we're looking at here. Um, it's because the central text is slightly bigger than the central text on the other side, and because on that side are some names used for God, and then other names used for the protective angels. Um, now, what I think what makes this item, this specific dagger, kind of different is that some of us may recognize already that the script on it is not just any Hebrew script, but that's actually the ritual script. The script that's used for a Sefer Torah, a Torah scroll, Megillah, which is the Book of Esther.
Mhm.
Um, and I found that to be interesting and also kind of different. Um, Practices going into amulets and practices going into items like this are not formal and mostly not instructional. And you find all kinds of examples, but to have an example like this where they follow the rules of writing letters for holy scrolls, which is very much the opposite. There's lots of rules and strict fashions of writing made this kind of an interesting and more of a unique dagger like that. Um, the main text that you see there is the again a protective name of God, and then there's a protective angel, and then the names below it, which are in a I would call a demi ritual safrut or Hebrew script, ritual script. Those are also more names of protective angels. Some of this text that you can see there come from the Book of Raziel, which was about dates from about a century before this, maybe a little bit more. And if you see some copies of the Book of Raziel all the way going back to the first printed edition in Amsterdam, 1701, you'll see that this actual instructional format, roughly based on roughly based on the things that you see, is there. Now, this is not that. This is just related to it, but you still have that influence. So it certainly dates after that, and it with a clear influence of that, which that disseminated and that went all over the Middle East, Europe, and so on. And that was one of the incursions of practical Kabbalah into into ritual and daily practice. Um,
Louis, there's
yep.
a question in the chat.
Yeah.
Claire is asking if you can read the names for us.
I don't. I don't know if it will really make a difference if I read it. First of all, I might not read it right. Um, I just it's probably since you asked that, it's probably important to point out these names are not meant to be read.
Hmm.
And they weren't meant to be read, and they weren't practiced as reading in all uses of angelic names. They're meditational names. They're names to you sort of look at it, think about it, and focus on it. Um, in this case, what we have here, a dagger, which very possibly was hidden away. Um, None of those things happened. It was just the fact that the names were present. It carved inside metal, as you can see here, that it would serve as a protective amulet for an infant or a child. And that's why I don't think it would be helpful for me to read these. They're not words in the sense of, a written script or something like that. They're more of divine names. Um, I should also point out that it's, the central text here is vocalized. There's vocalization. There's also the letter crowns, which you can see over. There's the shin, which has three. The dalet and the yud has one. And that is also, those are features of the Sefer Torah. Those are features of the ritual script that have come into to this dagger in a very interesting way. Um, what you see on the top, um, and you see it on both sides, different examples of it, and that also follows what that glyph there of the Aleph Lamed at the end of the large script. That is what they call Ketav Malachim or the angelic writing. You're looking at script that's not readable and not meant to be read. It's actually sort of a concoction script. And that's the idea was is that the protective or good angels would write that way. And this is a tradition that had come in, like I said, about a century before. Um, and this is something that you saw in different formularies and prescriptions of the Kabbalistic kind, especially like I mentioned in the Book of Raziel. Um, what you see on the bottom in those three words that are below the other pentagrams, three letters that start with the letters, three words that start with the letter Samach, those are also words from the Book of Raziel. And
Is
if
that
I'm not,
these ones here?
that's right. And
Yeah.
if I'm not mistaken, those are actually the evil angels that are to be banished. Um, that's the purpose of this item, and that's how this item functions. Um, Now, the incantation that you would only say would be what's all the way at the tip of the sword, of the dagger, and what I believe is also on the other side of the tip, on the tip. Yeah, it is on the other side, and on this side, which I think was the side B. This side, it's written in the Safrut, the ritual script, and the previous side, it's written less so that way. Um, that is an incantation against Satan. In this case, by the way, it's Satan in the sense of the Satan that prosecutes and causes harm, in this case to a child or to an infant. It's not in the wider sense. It's only in a strict specific sense of possible harm that can befall this infant that it's made to protect. And in this case, this sword, it's written into the point, and it's written to reflect the point on both sides of the item. On this bottom here, what you have in the angelic script, some of the ones in the center are actual symbols, I think, and some of these symbols I recognize from other places, although I can't name them. I don't know the names. Um, what I could see one which looks like six squares. The other one's very, very familiar. Some know it as the Magen David or the six-pointed star. Um, and they all have to do with not only Kabbalistic imagery, but Kabbalistic numerology because of the numbers of edges, circles, and running points, those circles. The circles that you can see that go from one to the other. And the other, what I believe is at the top, that script at the top is a cipher, stands for something else. I'm not sure what it stands for, but that just looks, that combination of letters appears to me like some kind of cipher. Um, in amuletic writing, you have both words, names, and ciphers. Ciphers could be an entire sentence. It could be a verse from the Psalms, let's say, or it could be or it could be some other kind of sentence that's protective that they just write it in as one word. Like I said, the purpose was to meditate on it. So by meditating on a word that is a cipher of an entire sentence, one can see the entire sentence. And that was one thing that was accomplished in this style, and in a lot of styles of other kinds of amulets that maybe we'll show one day. That include, let's say, rolled up parchment amulets worn by pregnant women, or other kinds of amulets that by having that word as the cipher, it offers the protection of having that entire sentence. And it also is useful in terms of as a meditational object. And that is something that you see here as well. And just to conclude, what I just have prepared for this is that we're kind of lucky that not only was this preserved, but a really interesting one of these was preserved, and it was preserved well in terms of seeing this script like this, and a little bit with the analysis one gives to paleography.
Mhm.
Um, it actually shows some interesting different little either cultural or scribal practices that who knows, I mean, possibly others don't show, or the fact that you just see just different interesting ways in specifically the dagger among the wider practice of writing Jewish amulets. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed what I prepared here for this, and I think that this is really kind of an interesting and different manuscript.
Yeah.
Certainly a manuscript for us that we have here.
Thank you, Louis. That was great. So Joyce has a question in the chat, and then I have a question. And anyone else, if you have questions, we have lots of time. So please go ahead and put them in the chat. So Joyce's question is, do you know the origin of the symbols? And I think she's talking about the angel writing symbols. Are they precursors in the region?
Um, I am certainly not the expert in this, but I would venture probably yes. Probably they originate from all over and sort of were adapted for use in this specific ritual use. Um, Symbols are, symbols, so you're able to spot them with your eyes, and they have a kind of almost universal way of speaking to people. And the symbols do get passed around, and I think that I've seen in other Eastern manuscripts, let's say, um, different variants of this symbol. I could certainly tell you that the six-pointed star is used far earlier than this item, and used everywhere almost universally in Jewish culture. But other symbols of these might be variants of other universal symbols. Some might be completely new symbols that were created. I do see also in some of the angelic writing that there is like kind of a strong Hebraic influence on them, even though they were trying to create something purposefully not legible, not readable in the sense that you read a text. It's more of symbols where you care about the symbol and you try to analyze the amounts of points, circles, corners, and so on. Um, and you do still see a very strong, can you see that shin right up there? But that's certainly not a shin.
Mhm.
That's
That's
a three-pointed symbol right there.
this one here,
Yeah, that's right.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so so it, they work as symbols. They're not letters, but you do see letters in them a little bit. And that's that's about as good as I can give you. But there are definitely experts in this field who can tell you more about the origin of these symbols and how they came to be used in amuletic practices.
So Claire says it's a reminder that there are many vehicles and formats for text, which indeed. And
Yeah.
then Kadi asks, is it known what the handle slash hilt looked like or what it was made of? So you said earlier it was made of wood, but do you have any sense of like how it might have looked? Is there any way to know that?
Um, A limited sense. I think that, well, okay. Why did I say that it was made from wood? I think that it was made from wood because it seems to have come off without any damage to the item. If it would have been made of metal, it would have seen some kind of damage or scratching or some other kind of wear and tear to the item just to get that handle off. And of course, also there's the puncture in the center, which is usually, not all the time, but usually used for wood. Um, and wood also can get old, and maybe the wood was just taken off because something had gone wrong with it.
Oh.
Um, I think that also you can't really see this, but everywhere where you can tell that the handle covered, it's the metal is far rougher and hasn't been smoothed or polished. And that would be to your advantage only really with wood, technically, especially knowing this is 18th century, because it would sort of not let it rub around. It would not let it, wobble. So that's why I thought that it was wood. I mean, when you do see on some daggers, even modern daggers, you will see the peg that holds the handle into the actual dagger goes through in a circular way in that kind of shape and that size. And that also would make sense. And I did see also other examples of the athamé um, that had looked like that and had a wooden handle.
Yeah. So Rebecca Irwin put a link in the chat that says another example from the auction house listed in the catalog record with a wood handle. But when I click on that, that dagger, I think it's this dagger. Can you click on that link? It looks exactly like this. And I don't know. Do you see it?
Yeah, well, that actually does
It
look like it, but I'll tell you why it's not dot. Do you want to just bring the dagger to the right?
yeah,
Um, I don't think so because if you
you
look at
don't
the
think so?
if you look at well, I don't know. I'm not sure. That might be it and it might have been removed.
It looks, I'm just saying it looks really similar. But I don't know. This is the only one of these I've ever seen. So I don't know if these tend to look exactly the same or
Right.
if they're
Let me
variant.
get back to you. I do want to look
Okay.
closer at that.
Yeah, please look closer at that because I'm like, I think it's the same one.
Thank you for finding that link. That's actually the first time. That's the first time during one of these coffee with a codex somebody dug up the auction record.
Yeah. So thank you, Rebecca. That's really interesting. And my question, unless there's more, let me look at the chat. Uh, auction starts in 10 days. That's very weird. So maybe it is that one doesn't go on auction for 10 days. It must be a different one, but I swear it looks
Yeah,
very
it looks
similar.
similar.
I was wondering if um you have any sense of whether all of the inscriptions were done at the same time or if they were at different times. And the reason that I ask really is because this one looks quite different from the others. There's just something about this one. And then of course, I mean, they all look kind of different. Like there's the big set of writing and then there's
Right.
the angelic writing. But do you know were they done at once or would the dagger have been made and then the inscriptions added at different points?
I don't know. It would be hard to know. All I could tell you is it probably would have been marketable, to a purchaser without the text on the bottom, but I
Mhm.
can't tell you for sure. Uh,
Okay.
you know, um, it's hard to say.
Okay. I was just curious. So thank you so much. It is time. Let's all say a big thank you to Lewis for showing us the dagger. This is very cool. And he'll be back in November. Um, and oh, very quickly, Draza says it might be a replica of ours. So
I was thinking that, and
yeah.
I actually want to look closely at what you just
Yeah.
shared with us.
So we'll be back with more news about that later on.
Yeah,
Yeah, but thank you so much, and I hope that I'll see you all next week and have a great week.
thank you.